We're operating on plateau at the minute. We're producing 77,000 barrels of oil a day.
Out in the open sea, far from shore, offshore oil platforms are some of the most exposed workplaces on Earth. These towering structures sit in regions that are often at the mercy of unpredictable and violent weather. For the workers stationed on these platforms, preparing for a giant storm isn't just about watching the skies. It's a coordinated, time-sensitive operation that starts well before the first dark clouds appear on the horizon. While much of the public only hears about oil rigs when disasters strike, the reality is that most offshore teams follow strict procedures and rely heavily on technology and planning to stay ahead of dangerous weather. Preparation begins with forecasting. Offshore operators monitor weather conditions constantly, not just during storm seasons. These platforms are equipped with real-time weather systems, which include satellite feeds, radar input, and ocean buoys that measure everything from wave height to barometric pressure. The data is streamed to onshore command centers and used by meteorologists and safety officers to analyze the likelihood of storm formation. These experts use this information to create detailed models of storm paths, projected intensity, and potential impacts on offshore installations. The Gulf of Mexico, the North Sea, and parts of Southeast Asia are particularly prone to severe weather systems, including hurricanes and cyclones. In these areas, oil companies invest in highly advanced monitoring systems. Every approaching low-pressure system is tracked from the moment it begins to form, even when it's still thousands of kilometers away. These systems give workers and managers an early warning that allows them to make critical decisions in a staged and controlled manner. When a storm appears on the radar, offshore management teams enter a state of readiness. Depending on the type of storm, tropical depression, tropical storm, or full hurricane, different protocols are activated. Storm categories are defined based on wind speed and central pressure, and most oil companies have pre-established thresholds that determine when to trigger certain responses. For example, a tropical storm watch might initiate equipment checks and update personnel on evacuation readiness, while a hurricane warning could lead to the suspension of drilling and production operations altogether. Regular weather briefings become more frequent as a storm draws closer. Offshore supervisors receive daily, sometimes hourly, updates from meteorological teams. These briefings are not generic weather reports. They're technical and targeted, focused on the specific location of the platform, the storm's speed, direction, and any anticipated changes. The goal is to make informed decisions early enough to keep everyone safe without disrupting operations unnecessarily. One of the key decisions made early is whether or not to evacuate personnel. Evacuations are costly and complex, involving helicopters, boats, and coordination between multiple teams. As a result, they are usually done in phases. Non-essential personnel, typically those not directly involved in safety, maintenance, or emergency operations, are the first to leave. Essential crew may remain for a longer period to ensure that the platform is secured properly. However, if the storm reaches a certain level, all personnel are eventually evacuated, usually 24 to 48 hours before the storm is expected to make direct impact. Alongside evacuation planning, crews begin preparing the platform itself. This is known as storm hardening. It includes a wide range of actions such as securing loose equipment, locking down storage containers, reinforcing scaffolding, and stowing away materials that could become dangerous if lifted by strong winds. All cranes, drills, and moving parts are locked in place or brought into safe positions. Anything not bolted down must either be secured or removed. Items like hand tools, hoses, and ladders are collected and stored in designated storm lockers. Monitoring also includes sea conditions. Rising swells and wave heights are tracked to anticipate when access to the platform may become too dangerous. Helicopters, for instance, can't land if winds or gusts exceed safe limits, and crew boats may not be able to reach the platform if waves are too high. This means that any evacuation must be completed before those thresholds are crossed. Timing is critical. Once the window closes, the crew still on board must be prepared to ride out the storm. While all this is going on offshore, onshore support teams are reviewing contingency plans and making sure that logistics, communication, and emergency response procedures are ready. They stay in constant contact with the offshore team, providing updates and ensuring that the evacuation process, if required, runs smoothly. These support teams also coordinate with regional authorities and maritime agencies, especially when multiple platforms are affected by the same weather system. Another element of storm preparation is communication. Every oil rig has its own chain of command, and during a storm alert, the command structure becomes even more critical. Everyone on board must be clear about their responsibilities, from the most senior officer to the newest crew member. Emergency communication drills are often run just before storm season begins, and again when a serious storm is approaching. These drills help ensure that everyone knows where to go, who to report to, and what equipment to use. In addition to technical forecasting, there's also growing use of machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve storm prediction models. These tools help identify weather patterns that might not be immediately visible to human observers. The earlier a storm can be accurately predicted, the more time offshore teams have to prepare. It's not about guessing. It's about using every available tool to make the right call as early as possible. The importance of preparation is especially clear when you consider that some offshore structures operate with crews of 100 or more people. These aren't just work sites, they're fully functional communities, with living quarters, kitchens, recreation rooms, and medical stations. Ensuring their safety requires a combination of engineering, discipline, and up-to-the-minute information. Over time, oil companies have learned hard lessons from past storms. Hurricanes like Katrina, Rita, and Harvey caused significant damage to offshore rigs and exposed vulnerabilities in emergency planning. Since then, many companies have updated their risk management procedures and invested in stronger platforms, better training, and more reliable data systems. Today's platforms are more resilient, and crews are better trained than ever before. Still, the risks are real, and nature remains unpredictable. Preparing for giant storms isn't about eliminating risk, it's about managing it. With the right systems in place, the right people on board, and the right information flowing at the right time, offshore oil rig workers are able to respond quickly and decisively when the weather turns hostile. Once a storm has been identified and confirmed to be on a collision course with an offshore oil platform, the preparation process shifts from planning and monitoring to hands-on action. This second phase is all about physically preparing the platform itself, making sure that every piece of equipment, every system, and every structural component is ready to withstand high winds, towering waves, and unpredictable conditions. While the crew on board may have trained for these moments, the window for preparation is narrow, and the margin for error is incredibly small. The focus now becomes clear: secure the platform, protect the environment, and minimize damage to ensure a safe return to operations once the storm passes. Oil platforms are designed to operate in some of the harshest environments on Earth, but no structure is completely invulnerable to the power of a major storm. That's why securing the platform, often referred to as storm hardening, is done through a well-established protocol. The first priority is to shut down or stabilize all systems that could become dangerous during the storm. This includes halting drilling operations, sealing off wellheads, and shutting in the production lines. A shut-in essentially means stopping the flow of oil and gas from the well to the surface. Special safety valves located deep within the wellbore are closed, and surface valves are locked, preventing any uncontrolled release of hydrocarbons should the system be damaged during the storm. This process isn't as simple as flipping a switch. It requires a careful, step-by-step procedure to ensure pressure is relieved correctly. Lines are purged of dangerous gases, and mechanical systems are depressurized in a controlled way. All of this is done according to safety standards set by regulatory bodies, like the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, BSEE, in the United States. These agencies require operators to document every part of the shutdown, both for compliance and for review after the event. Next comes securing physical assets. The open decks of an offshore platform are filled with equipment: cranes, pipes, hoses, containers, and tools. Anything that isn't properly secured could become airborne or swept overboard during high winds or waves. Crews are responsible for tying down every loose item using chains, straps, and specialized brackets. In some cases, larger movable structures, like crane booms, are folded and locked into storm positions to reduce wind resistance. Some equipment is even lifted by crane and stored in dedicated storm shelters on the rig. These are reinforced compartments specifically built to protect sensitive machinery or hazardous materials from exposure. Hazardous chemicals, fuels, and waste materials are locked down or moved to double-walled containment units. Any leftover debris is swept and removed from the work areas to prevent it from becoming a hazard. Floating rigs or semi-submersible platforms require even more detailed preparation. These rigs are partially supported by submerged pontoons or columns and rely on dynamic positioning or mooring systems to maintain their location. When a major storm approaches, operators may adjust the rig's ballast to raise its deck height above expected wave crests. This involves pumping water into or out of the platform's ballast tanks to control its buoyancy. The goal is to reduce the risk of wave impact on the working areas of the rig. In some cases, auxiliary structures like flotels, floating hotels used to accommodate overflow crew members, are detached and moved away from the main platform. These support vessels are often towed to calmer waters or returned to shore before the worst of the storm hits. Keeping them attached to the platform would pose too much risk, both in terms of structural stress and the safety of those on board. Electrical systems are another key area of focus. Any non-essential power systems are powered down to prevent surges or electrical fires. Backup generators are checked and fueled to ensure emergency lighting, communications, and critical systems will remain online even if the primary power supply is interrupted. Emergency systems such as fire suppression, gas detectors, and pressure sensors are tested and confirmed to be operational. Structural integrity checks are carried out as well. Engineers and technicians inspect the welding seams, legs, supports, and braces of the platform, looking for any weaknesses or damage that could be made worse by extreme weather. These inspections are done visually and often using ultrasonic or radiographic testing tools. While most platforms are built to withstand what are known as 100-year storms, extreme weather events that statistically occur once in a century, operators never assume safety. They review engineering data, historical performance, and even previous maintenance records to ensure nothing has been overlooked. Weatherproofing the living quarters is also critical. Accommodation modules on oil rigs are built to withstand strong winds, but precautions still need to be taken. Windows are inspected and secured with storm shutters or reinforced covers. Interior items like furniture and appliances are fixed in place to avoid injuries during motion. Water and food supplies are checked to ensure the remaining crew has enough to last in case they become stranded for longer than expected. Emergency rations, medical kits, and first aid stations are stocked and accessible. Ventilation and air intake systems are fitted with storm barriers to keep out seawater and debris. Communication systems, including satellite phones, radios, and internet relays, are double-checked. These channels must remain open between the rig, onshore support, and any rescue or support vessels operating in the area. Even if the crew evacuates, automated systems on the rig continue to send status updates and environmental readings to the command center. What's perhaps most remarkable is the coordination involved in all this. On large offshore rigs, there may be dozens or even over 100 people involved in storm preparation. Each person has a designated role, from crane operators to electrical engineers to safety officers. The entire team works from a storm readiness checklist that guides every stage of the process. This checklist is not just based on one company's policy. It reflects decades of shared experience across the global oil and gas industry. Lessons learned from past storms are integrated into every update, making each rig better prepared than the last. This preparation phase usually takes place over the course of 24 to 72 hours, depending on the size of the storm and how much notice is given. The challenge is always time. Weather systems can intensify quickly, and while forecasts have become more accurate over the years, the sea doesn't always behave as expected. That's why preparation begins well before a storm even hits the radar. Many of the steps described, such as storm lockers, reinforced structures, and safety training, are built into daily operations and reviewed regularly. Ultimately, the goal of storm hardening is not to resist nature entirely, but to respect it. The sea is unpredictable, and storms can change course or gain strength unexpectedly. Preparing the platform for a storm is about buying time, protecting lives, and preserving the integrity of the equipment so that once the weather clears, operations can resume safely and efficiently. The process of protecting workers begins well before a storm is even on the horizon. Most offshore oil workers receive extensive training in emergency response, evacuation procedures, and survival techniques before they ever set foot on a platform. This training is refreshed regularly, with drills conducted on board to simulate various emergency scenarios, including fire, explosion, oil spills, and severe weather. These drills are not theoretical exercises. They are practical, high-pressure events designed to familiarize workers with their escape routes, responsibilities, and available safety equipment. Each worker is assigned a muster station, which is a designated location where they report during an emergency. These stations are equipped with life vests, immersion suits, breathing apparatus, and communication tools. Muster lists are checked frequently, and during drills, attendance is carefully monitored. The idea is simple. If a storm worsens to the point where evacuation becomes necessary, everyone knows exactly where to go and what to do. There's no time for confusion when minutes matter. As a storm approaches, the evacuation process is usually done in stages. This allows for an orderly, controlled departure that prioritizes safety over speed. The first people to leave are non-essential personnel. These include administrative staff, additional contractors, and anyone whose presence is not critical to storm preparation. These individuals are evacuated via helicopter or crew boats, depending on conditions and timing. Helicopter flights are scheduled back-to-back, operating as long as weather allows. Pilots and flight crews are trained to operate in challenging conditions, but there are strict safety limits that cannot be exceeded. If wind speeds or sea states become too severe, flights are grounded, and all remaining crew must ride out the storm on the platform. The second phase of evacuation includes a reduced core team of essential personnel, engineers, safety officers, and operations staff, who stay behind to oversee final storm preparations. These individuals have specific roles, such as shutting in wells, powering down electrical systems, securing final equipment, and performing one last sweep of the platform to ensure nothing has been overlooked. Their job is high pressure and time-sensitive, and it requires not only technical skill, but also calm under stress. Once their duties are complete, this team evacuates as well, assuming conditions permit. In some cases, however, a skeleton crew may remain on board. These are highly trained individuals responsible for monitoring the storm's impact, maintaining communications with shore-based teams, and responding to any emergencies that may arise. This is not a decision made lightly. Leaving a crew on a platform during a major storm carries risks, but in some situations, especially where full evacuation is impossible or delayed, it is a calculated necessity. The personal protective equipment worn by offshore workers is also tailored to these situations. Standard gear includes flame-resistant clothing, safety boots, hard hats, and gloves. But during storm season or an active evacuation, additional gear is issued. Workers don immersion suits that can keep them alive in cold water for extended periods, as well as life jackets equipped with lights, whistles, and locator beacons. Some workers are also issued personal locator beacons, PLBs, or AIS, Automatic Identification System, transponders that can transmit their location in case of overboard emergencies. These devices are crucial during rough sea rescues, where visibility and communication can be severely limited. During high alert phases, emergency supplies are reviewed and repositioned for easy access. Medical kits, oxygen tanks, fire extinguishers, and emergency rations are made ready. Many platforms also have designated safe rooms or hardened areas known as temporary refuge, TR zones. These are pressurized, fire-resistant spaces where crew members can shelter in case evacuation isn't possible or if the platform is hit by a sudden emergency. Communication during a storm event is a lifeline. Offshore workers must stay in contact with onshore support teams, other platforms in the region, air and sea rescue services, and internal safety officers. Satellite communication, VHF radios, and encrypted messaging systems are used to maintain real-time updates. Each platform has a designated radio operator or communicator whose job is to ensure that information flows both ways, so that decisions are made based on accurate, up-to-date intelligence. Mental preparation is another key factor. Facing a giant storm at sea can be frightening, even for seasoned veterans. The psychological pressure is intense. Workers are isolated, surrounded by turbulent seas, and entirely dependent on their training, their colleagues, and the integrity of the platform. In recent years, companies have placed a stronger focus on mental health support, both during and after storm events. This includes access to counseling, peer support programs, and debriefings once the situation has stabilized. Some platforms are also equipped with virtual communications tools to allow crew members to speak with family members before evacuating or bracing for impact. There are also legal and ethical considerations when it comes to personnel safety. In countries like the United States, offshore oil operations fall under the jurisdiction of regulatory bodies like OSHA and BSEEE. These agencies mandate strict protocols for evacuation, equipment maintenance, and emergency preparedness. Operators are required to submit and regularly update their safety and environmental management systems (SEMS), which include detailed evacuation and storm response plans. Failure to comply can result in heavy penalties, license suspensions, or even criminal charges. Insurance companies and maritime legal frameworks also play a role. Under laws like the Jones Act, workers injured or killed due to employer negligence during storm situations may be entitled to compensation. This legal risk motivates companies to take evacuation planning seriously and to ensure that all safety protocols are up to date and properly followed. For the families of offshore workers, storm season is a time of anxiety. Many companies provide updates through official portals or emergency contact lines, giving families real-time information about evacuations and weather developments. Some employers even offer temporary relocation or financial support for families living in coastal areas during high-risk periods. The logistics of moving dozens, or in some cases hundreds, of workers safely from remote platforms in a limited time frame require precision and experience. Every decision is made based on a combination of weather data, platform readiness, personnel availability, and transport conditions. There's no room for guesswork. In recent years, technology has made this process more efficient. Real-time personnel tracking, automated headcounts, drone inspections, and AI-assisted weather prediction models are becoming more common. These tools don't replace human judgment, but they enhance situational awareness and help safety teams make better informed decisions faster. Ultimately, storm preparation from the human perspective is about more than drills and checklists. It's about teamwork, trust, and the shared understanding that everyone's safety depends on everyone else doing their job correctly. Offshore work is inherently dangerous, but with the right systems, training, and culture in place, those risks can be managed effectively. The first step after the storm is verifying that it's safe to even approach the platform. Helicopter crews and marine vessels conduct initial flyovers and surface scans, checking the condition of structures from a safe distance. If any parts of the platform have collapsed, shifted, or sustained visible damage, these are photographed and logged. Crews look for missing deck sections, tilted cranes, broken antennas, and signs of hydrocarbon release. This aerial assessment gives engineers and safety officers a high-level view of what they're dealing with before sending personnel on board. Meanwhile, satellite tracking and GPS systems confirm whether floating rigs, semi-submersibles, or moored platforms have remained in position. In some cases, extreme wave action or anchor failures may cause rigs to drift, break loose, or twist against their mooring lines. These movements can put enormous stress on pipelines, risers, and support legs. So even if a platform appears intact, its position must be carefully checked against its designated coordinates. Once it's deemed safe to land, a small team of engineers and emergency response personnel boards the platform. These individuals are usually part of a specialist recovery unit trained to inspect storm damage under hazardous conditions. Their tasks include verifying the stability of stairways and decks, ensuring the structural integrity of load-bearing beams, and checking for electrical hazards or chemical spills. Personal safety is a priority, so all inspections are done while wearing full protective gear, including harnesses, gloves, gas monitors, and often breathing apparatus. A major focus is leak detection. Even minor breaches in a pipeline or storage system can result in environmental harm if left undetected. Crew members use infrared cameras, pressure gauges, and flow sensors to identify potential leaks. In many regions, operators are legally obligated to report any discharge of oil, gas, or chemicals to local environmental agencies immediately, and failure to do so can result in substantial fines or operational shutdowns. The priority here is not just the safety of the platform, but the protection of marine ecosystems. If leaks or spills are detected, containment and cleanup operations begin immediately. Most platforms are equipped with spill response kits, including booms, skimmers, absorbents, and emergency shutdown tools. Depending on the severity of the situation, additional support may be brought in by boat or helicopter. Cleanup teams may be required to undergo HAZWOPER, hazardous waste operations and emergency response, training, which prepares them for working in contaminated areas and handling toxic substances safely. Once structural and environmental safety has been confirmed, power systems are checked. This includes everything from main generators to battery backups and emergency lights. Electrical panels are inspected for water intrusion, and circuit breakers are tested to ensure they weren't tripped or damaged. Communication systems, too, are a priority. Radios, satellite uplinks, and internal PA systems must be fully operational before a larger crew can safely return to the platform. Next, the platform's production systems are reviewed. Valves are tested to ensure they can be opened and closed without issue. Pumps and compressors are turned on in sequence, monitored for any unusual vibrations, pressure spikes, or temperature changes. In this phase, patience is critical. Restarting too quickly can result in equipment failure, pipeline ruptures, or a cascade of problems that could take weeks to fix. That's why reactivation plans are always step-by-step, signed off by multiple team leaders, and overseen by operations engineers both offshore and onshore. Reoccupation of the platform happens in stages. The first group typically includes systems engineers, maintenance crews, and safety personnel. Their role is to bring the platform back to full functionality, repair any lingering damage, and ensure living quarters are clean, stocked, and safe. Once that is complete, a larger team may return, including drilling personnel and administrative staff. Non-critical operations, such as maintenance or construction projects, are resumed last. Every step taken is logged in detail. Offshore operators must report to national safety and environmental regulators, such as BSEE in the United States or the Health and Safety Executive in the UK. These reports outline the storm's impact, what was damaged, what was done to fix it, and any environmental issues encountered. This documentation forms part of a platform's permanent operational history and may be reviewed in future audits, investigations, or planning sessions. One particularly important post-storm step is the debrief. This is where crews gather, either in person or virtually, to review how the storm preparation and response process went. What worked well? What caused delays? Were there any near misses or communication breakdowns? This is the time when lessons are captured and stored for future use. Many offshore platforms maintain internal lessons learned libraries, which are used to update emergency protocols, training programs, and structural designs. Sometimes these debriefs lead to significant changes. After storms like Hurricane Katrina and Rita, offshore standards were overhauled. Structural designs were strengthened, evacuation protocols were refined, and communication networks were improved. These lessons have helped the industry evolve and have made current platforms far more resilient than their predecessors. Still, the unpredictable nature of weather means there's always something new to learn. In recent years, technology has played a growing role in storm recovery. Drones are now used for detailed inspections of flare stacks, crane arms, and other high points that are difficult and dangerous to access manually. Remote sensors installed on critical infrastructure provide real-time data on stress levels, corrosion, and structural movement. Artificial intelligence is being tested to analyze weather data and predict which assets are most at risk, allowing for more focused recovery planning. But no matter how advanced the tools become, the human element remains central to storm recovery. It's the crew that climbs the stairs, checks the valves, restarts the systems, and makes the judgment calls when something doesn't look right. These workers rely on experience, training, and teamwork to bring the platform back online safely. Mental health support continues during this stage as well. Workers returning after a storm may feel anxious, especially if the platform has visible damage, or if the storm was particularly violent. Companies are increasingly providing access to counseling, rest breaks, and peer support networks. In some cases, crew members are rotated more frequently in the weeks after a storm to reduce stress and fatigue. Eventually, normal operations resume. Drilling continues, production ramps up, and life on the platform settles back into its familiar rhythm. But the impact of the storm lingers in many ways, from the updates to safety procedures, to the lessons recorded in incident reports, to the memories held by those who lived through it. Storm recovery isn't just about fixing what was broken. It's about ensuring that the next time the skies darken and the seas rise, the crew is even better prepared. Offshore oil work will always carry risk, but with every storm, the industry becomes a little stronger, a little smarter, and a little more capable of facing whatever the ocean decides to throw its way.